Go.
Hello, my name is Burnett, and I will be presenting on the topic of nostalgia and marketing. Background. Now, before we dive into nostalgia and marketing, it's important to first take a step back and look at nostalgia as a whole. According to Johann Norberg, author of False Nostalgia, nostalgia is a form of psychological bias, the term for which was coined in 1688 by Swedish doctor Johannes Hofer. The term originally referred to the sad and obsessive desires of students, servants, and soldiers in foreign lands to return home. However, in the modern day, nostalgia is understood simply as the longing for the past experiences, or the belief that the past was better than it actually was. In my picture. So let's look at a general overview of nostalgia bias and marketing. Now, nostalgia marketing is nothing new, but in recent years it's become more prevalent than ever. As you can see in the graph behind me, according to Yahoo News, less and less of the most successful movies each year are original IPs, meaning more and more of them are remakes and sequels, which often rely on nostalgia in their inception and marketing, as they take stories that studios know have been successful in the past and simply retell them to an audience once again. The Guardian strengthens this claim of nostalgia being more prevalent than before when they write that the company Gap has experienced a revival by tapping into 1990s and 2000 styles through collaborations with social media influencers. This strategy has led to a 7% increase in sales. This quote shows that nostalgia bias in marketing isn't just in movies, it's also in fashion, and that companies are actually using nostalgia in their marketing, and they are finding success with it. The Times further strengthens this claim when they write that the British Toy and Hobby Association reported that nearly 1/3 of toy sales are to adults and teens, reflecting a significant market that is driven by nostalgia. This once again shows the many forms of products that nostalgia marketing can be found. And it also shows us that nostalgia and marketing isn't just some micro trend, but is an actual large part of marketing as a whole. So let's look at today's research question, which is, why do companies use nostalgia to market and create their products instead of innovating and advancing future products? Before we dive into this question, let's take a look at how it's connected to the stimulus. This question is connected to the stimulus in the general theme of memory, but it also has a more specific connection, and that is in the topic of nostalgia. As stimulus articles such as False Nostalgia and Selena Dad discuss what nostalgia is, how it affects people, but they also discuss nostalgia in relation to celebrities and IPs, which is similar to the topic of nostalgia and marketing, as that deals with how nostalgia affects the way that these certain celebrities or products are marketed. So, let's look at why nostalgia bias is so effective when it comes to marketing. Now, there are two key reasons that nostalgia bias in marketing is so effective. The first of which is psychological. According to Mirage News, quote, research points to sensory stimuli as the primary instigators. Sounds, scents, and sights can act as memory cues for nostalgia, quote, Mirage News. This quote shows that nostalgia isn't just some term, but it's an actual science that has effects in our brain, which is part of the reason that when it's used in marketing, it is so effective, as it is scientifically driven. Another reason behind this is the emotional part of nostalgia. This is explained well by the Decision Map, when they write that nostalgia is the recollection of a young adult, free of worries and responsibilities, and rich with a pleasure that paints a rosy picture of the past. Quote, the Decision Map. This shows that nostalgia has a connection to our more fond memories of the past. And so, when companies use this nostalgia in their marketing, they are preying on those emotional connections and vulnerabilities, which can make people more susceptible to fall for their marketing techniques, as it is relying on their positive past memories. So, let's take a look at some examples of successes by using nostalgia marketing through 3 different fields. The first of which is the movie Spider-Man No Way Home, one of the most commercially successful superhero movies of all time. And this movie relied heavily on nostalgia in its concept and in its marketing, as it took old actors from very successful movies of the past, the original Spider-Man movies, and brought them back for one more movie. And they marketed this heavily. And because of this nostalgia-based marketing with actors that people were famously nostalgic for, that allowed them to make a lot of money, becoming one of the most successful superhero movies of all time. Another example of nostalgia bias being successfully used in marketing is the grimace shake. And now, while some may say that it wasn't successful because of nostalgia marketing, but rather it was successful because of a viral online trend, the truth is that nostalgia marketing was the original marketing behind this product, as it was an anniversary promotion for a discontinued character from an era that people are famously nostalgic for, which is the 90s and early 2000s. Now, the final key example I have is the Chicago Bulls. And unlike Spider-Man and McDonald's, the Chicago Bulls do not run ad campaigns, but they do use nostalgia in their marketing, specifically in their branding, as they're one of the few NBA teams that still uses the same branding as they did in the 90s, an era where they were wildly successful and popular. And by using this nostalgic branding, they are still one of the most successful NBA teams, being the 7th most profitable NBA team as of 2022, despite the fact that they have had a lack of on-court success in the last 20 years. Now let's look at some drawbacks to using nostalgia in marketing. Now, the counter-argument to this claim is that companies actually don't rely on nostalgia marketing that much because it's not effective, and it's more of a micro trend. And there are a few things that support this. The first of which is the problem of age groups, as nostalgia marketing may not always be relatable to all generations. And while it is possible to have nostalgia-based marketing that relates to all generations, such as the examples I showed you before, it is much less likely. And so, by using nostalgia-based marketing, you are often limiting yourself to one age group. An extension of this is that if you fail to resonate with that age group that you've limited yourself to, your product and campaign essentially completely fails, as you've already limited yourself to one age group, and now you have failed to resonate with that very group, so your marketing has no success. Another problem that comes alongside nostalgia marketing is a lack of innovation. Going back to the movie example of earlier, when all the most successful movies are remakes or sequels, there are no original stories coming into Hollywood, and so there's a lack of real innovation or change in the industry, leading to a general bad state for any product or industry. So, conclusion. In conclusion, nostalgia is a prominent marketing tactic that, despite some drawbacks such as age groups and lack of innovation, its effectiveness both scientifically and emotionally, as well as countless proven examples through multiple fields such as fashion, clothing, and more, make it a very widely used marketing technique by many companies. Thank you. And this is my big job.
So Noah,
Yep.
what evidence did you gather that you didn't include, and why did you choose not to include it?
So going back to some of the examples I showed earlier, my paper was actually completely on the Chicago Bulls. And so I had a lot of evidence on them, and I touched on it in my presentation, talking about how even though without running ad campaigns, they still use nostalgia marketing. I had a lot more of that in my paper, but I decided to not include most of it because I felt it would be more relevant to include the companies that actually run ad campaigns with using nostalgia.
So what additional questions emerged from your research, and why are these questions important?
So I have some additional questions, me specifically, but also other people. I have questions about going back to the lack of innovation in the state of Hollywood. Like what happens when nostalgia marketing is over-relied on so much that there is no new innovation? Like what are some pitfalls of that, and like even ethical questions of that? Like if a product or an industry is just churning out the same thing over and over again, there's some ethical dilemmas of that. So that's definitely one of the questions that arose.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.